So here we go. As you can see, I am sharing my screen and I'm going to be talking about our course creation process. This is a quick overview. So I'm going to talk about the process we go through for every month, creating our courses, these brandable courses, and launching them. So people have asked me this before, how do we crank these out every single month at the same high quality? So that's what I'm going to go through, and I'll also show you in our project management system how we maintain the quality control and consistency on each one. So here's the overview of the process, the course creation process. And you can see at the high level that there are 5 phases to this. There's actually, there's 5 phases. I'll show you in the project management system too. So I'm just going to zoom in on this so that you can see each section and go up a little bit. So the first phase here is our planning phase. And that's where we're picking out the main topics for each course. So we try to do that about 6 months to a year in advance. We don't necessarily stick to a very strict schedule because if there are requests from customers that make sense, then we'll look at those and see if those make sense to do a little bit earlier. So you can see I said that it's based on requests from customers, but again, we look at research and current trends as well. So while all our courses we try and make evergreen so that they'll last at least a few years, because obviously if you're going to put some time into setting it up, you should be able to sell it over and over. But if there are certain trends that look like they're going to continue, we'll look at that as a topic. And then the other way we select topics is looking at gaps in our suggested curriculums. And this is something relatively new that we're going to be doing, which is actually saying, okay, here's a course, and how can that fit into a longer series of courses so that when you set it up in your business, you're not just doing a one-off course, you can make it part of something longer, like a monthly program or a membership site of some sort, so that, or a coaching group, or maybe putting some together, over a couple weeks, or a live event. So that's something we're going to be doing starting actually with next week. Yes, next week we have a program called How to Create a Realistic Content Plan or Content Marketing Plan. And we will suggest some other courses that could fit in a series in there around using content to fuel your business growth. So I'm hoping that will be helpful so that you can actually envision it in your business. And again, that when we're planning out topics, as we look at these suggested curriculums, we'll see where there are some gaps that need to be filled. So if there are certain programs that make sense to create to fill in those gaps, then we'll do that as well. So that's the planning phase. We pick out our topics and we look into them, do some research, make sure we have the right angle that makes sense for your audience in a kind of a general way so that it can still be tailored really easily. And so often we have to take that and narrow it down. So we're not going to just create a course on content marketing or a content marketing plan. It has to be something that's narrower, like the one next week is on how to create a realistic content marketing plan focused on small businesses. So then the next phase is the actual design phase. And this is the most important. This is the most important for making sure that you have a course that's going to make sense to people. It's going to flow. There's the right amount of content in it. There are clear outcomes so that when people go into the course, you have a very clear sense of what you want them to be able to do when they're done with that course. And it has to be something manageable that they can do in one course. And then you would make them part of a longer curriculum if there's a lot of stuff involved. So you have to be careful. We use instructional designers for this. In fact, we just hired someone who has over 30 years of experience creating courses for everything from, small businesses and coaches to larger corporations. And she's really terrific. And I also have been doing this for about 25 years, approximately. I've lost count. So we work together on that to make sure it's really it has a lot of integrity, the course, in terms of the instructional design. And I know that's a term that a lot of people aren't familiar with, but it is a very clear process where you start with the research, you analyze the needs, what do people need to be able to do on that topic, and how do they apply it to their business. And we do depart a little bit from the traditional instructional design, because when we look at the key outcomes for people going through the course, those learning objectives, we focus on what the benefits are. So almost from a sales perspective, why should people want to do this? So with each module, why should they want to learn how to identify their ideal customer? Why should they do certain research into what their customers want in terms of content? All those different things. How is that's going to affect the rest of their business and their own life and make things easier for them? So we think about that. And the other thing that's a little bit different is every single module has that learning activity, or what we're now calling action steps. So the action steps here. And when we look at those, we always make it so that it can be applied to your business, applied to the student's business, so that when they come out, they have things they can already or are already doing in their business, versus some training programs, some of the more traditional corporate ones are talking about, they'll have case studies and role plays that don't necessarily apply directly to their business. And then they have to go and think about how to translate that. So that's the design phase here. And we have everything broken down by manageable modules. And then it's ready to be created. So this is the creation phase here. And this is where the materials themselves are created and written. So there's actually there's the course book itself that has all that content and explanation, taking that design and bringing it to life. And right now, we either have the instructional designer write that, or we will outsource it to a writer. We're finding that the instructional designer can do a better job, because she actually has that picture in her head already of what the course should look like and the key points in there. And then in-house, we'll create things like the slideshow with the speaking notes, the action guide, or calling that workbook, the worksheets. I think we're going to switch that to be calling it an action guide, because it's really about taking action. And there's some graphics where we use smart art. So we try and keep that really simple, and we'll outsource things like the opt-in report, lead magnet, blog posts, follow-up emails, some of those things that are a little bit easier to outsource. And then there's a lot of communication going back and forth, back and forth. We'll check back with the design, make sure it's being followed. If the design needs to be tweaked a little bit, because things aren't making quite enough sense, because when you start actually writing stuff, even though you have an outline, sometimes you'll suddenly see that something doesn't make sense, or that there isn't enough. So that is the creation process. And then we have a whole package of materials that's ready to be done. And if there are extras in-house, like the facilitator guide, we'll do that. And there's a whole bunch, as you'll see, and I'll show you again in the project management system. And then in the promotion phase, that's our side of things, where we're actually putting together the materials, education materials, promotional content, things like that, to get everything in front of our customers, which is you, obviously. So and we start thinking about that even while everything's being created, because we're always trying to think ahead. So we'll be creating a course 1 or 2 months ahead of when it's going to actually be released, and we'll be thinking about the promotion side of things. What kind of information do we have to share? What needs to be on the sales page. And again, we're going to make a few changes with the next one being released next week to try and make that a little clearer, not be quite as overwhelming with all the content that we're giving you. Just highlight the important things and how you can use it. So I'm hoping that'll help. So that's the promotional side. And then, of course, then there's the launch. And that I have emails all written and scheduled out. We keep an eye on email responses and questions and customer support, give any follow-up or post-sales service. I'm always working on giving tips and training to help you use the content. So that continues on. And that is the overview of the whole process. So again, we've got the planning stage where we're picking the topics and narrowing it down and figuring out the angle that makes most sense, looking at trends and requests and gaps in the curriculum. We spent a lot of time on this design phase. So this is something very different from other people who are selling brandable content. The fact that we have an instructional designer, a lot of experience really thinking it through. So it's like having your own team of almost a corporate training department or learning consultants. That's what I used to do is as a learning consultant. Then we spend the time on the creation of the actual materials and our own promotion and launch. So I know a lot of people are going to be watching this on the replay. So if you have questions about this, please do just put them in the comment box. I will be looking out for it. And now let me head over to our project management system. I will keep an eye out for questions here as people join. So heading over there, this is what the back end of our project management system looks like for one project. This is actually a template. We keep a template of all the different steps and things we need to create. And then every time we have a new course, we copy this over and we assign things to different people. We put in the deadlines, the launch date. As we make any tweaks to things we want to include in our standard projects, we'll do that and keep the template up to date. But this is the basic template right here. I like to keep it in this list view because that's just the way I make sure that there's things that I don't miss. Asana does have a way to do a calendar view, but you have to make sure, of course, that you have dates assigned to everything. We don't have any dates on this one because it's the template. So I'll go back to the list view. And also in Asana, we divide it up into phases again. So we don't have the planning phase in here because that is something that's separate from the individual projects. This is the one course itself where it starts with that design phase. And we'll look at where the topic will fit in a curriculum so that we have that big picture already of how it will fit in your business. And then we go into the topic research. So we're always looking at what the latest research is, and this is where we start also to narrow it down more and think about what the best angle is for it and what subtopics need to be covered. That then leads into that course outline where we're looking at the module flow and what makes the most sense. And this is also where we flesh out the design. So here I'm just clicking on it to show the description because in this template we have the description again for consistency to make sure every single course has the right things being covered. So we have the target audience, we look at the goal of the course, an overview, the key outcomes, which I mentioned before, the breakdown of the modules, the action steps or learning activities for each module, making sure of what worksheets, action sheets are going to need, or templates will need to be created. Specific learning objectives, that's instructional design term for what people will be able to do when they finish each module. And of course, the key points that need to be covered in the course book so that people can do those action steps, achieve those learning objectives. And then the designer will outline the additional deliverables of things like the lead magnet and follow-up emails and what topics fit into a sales process. So that's a big part of this, and making sure that you're getting a really good course and that each one is going to get the results. In terms of the consistency, quality, again, we have a review process in there. So I'll review the design, make sure that we're all in agreement. Defining titles, that actually doesn't necessarily come this early on, because I can never think of a good title. For me, this is like the hardest part of everything. The design, it should be the design, right? Actually designing the course should be the most difficult, creating it. No, for me, it's the actual title of the course. And I've been finding that in general, making it, rather than doing cutesy titles, the thing that works best, for us at least, is having titles that are very clear. Like next week's is how to create a realistic content marketing plan. So you should know what you're getting there. How to create a marketing plan, how to create an online course, really straightforward. For you, when you go ahead and are selling the course, you would want to do something a little bit different, make it stand out and make it more branded. Like if you have a series, like a fast track series or a beginner's series or something like that. But for us, selling to coaches and consultants, we have to make it really clear. Again, hardest part. Then we come to that creation phase, and you can see there's a lot of things here. We have it all separated out. So the course book, instructional designers writing, have some notes about when it's done with the main draft, you send it to the writer with the outlines of deliverables. We hand it off to the writer. And what we found is working best now is to actually have a discussion live with the writer versus just working via email. So that's a big deal as well. And then the writer is working on that. We'll set deadlines. There's review of the writer's deliverables. So the instructional designer makes sure that everything fits. And then we start creating and editing and formatting everything in-house. We have that summary cheat sheet with an outline so that people have a high-level picture, students. We edit everything. We format so that everything's consistent. We have e-covers with our own branding where we use a template. And all these things, we're using a template to speed things along. Supporting course content are all those extra things that help reinforce learning for the students, help you with teaching it in multimedia. So we have the action guide or workbook and worksheets. We have any graphics and smart art that help give a summary of key points, any infographics that give that high-level view. The slideshow itself, we're using that summary cheat sheet and outline and creating slides. There are usually 100 or more slides in each. And we're putting the speaking notes underneath each of those, which we then generate out into a doc. We work on the opt-in report to put it in different formats, the cheat sheet format, slideshow. Now we're doing this suggested curriculum as well, so that we can check and make sure that this fits into a longer series for you, so that you can fit it into your business. Putting that into a matrix so that you can see how that fits together. The teaching guide is the facilitator guide, where again we have a standard template, but things need to change for each course to describe it. Overview, evaluation form, research sources we include for you. So you can see there's a lot of stuff in here that also goes into it, and it all supports for teaching and for your students as well, and for gathering leads. Quizzes is something we actually are not doing yet, but we're thinking about, so we have it in the template, and we're only going to be doing if it makes sense, because you don't have to include every bit of content just to keep things standard. Only do it if it makes sense for that particular topic. And again, we have a final review, so it's going through a instructional designer review, an editor review, a final review again to make sure. We have standard things that have to be added. So you can see we've broken down every single thing in here to try and keep it consistent, checking the contents, uploading to the server. And all those things is what goes into the actual creation of the course. And then you can see that we have things that we have to do I have to write product follow-up emails so that you, as the buyer of the course, have some extra tips and follow through and maybe reminders of the curriculum. We try and do a blog post for each, not each, but most of the courses that we release, so that you have an additional content that helps understand it, and from our marketing perspective, drives traffic. So always trying to have that, and there's various steps in there. Contacting affiliates. So I don't do it. I actually got most of my customers through affiliates initially. Now I get organic traffic as well, and of course repeat buyers, but I try and keep my affiliates up to date on that. There's marketing content. There's, we use Canva a lot. We sometimes do our own slideshow or a Facebook ad. I'm finding Facebook's really expensive these days, so I haven't been doing it as much. And when I do it, I really do it just to my customers and my email list. So just an aside there. We schedule all the content, so you can see there's lots of stuff to schedule. I have to write my emails, launch emails, and follow-up emails as well, and I schedule those, especially if I'm going to be traveling. So this is an important part that I keep track of. There's the sales pages themselves. So we have we've been using Lead Pages for our bigger sales pages, just because it's better visually. It's then working in WordPress. It also just loads much faster than the stuff on WordPress, and that's partly because our site's a little bit bloated and needs work. But I just find it's nice to use a platform that has a lot of different features, is easy to work with, has templates. So we've created our own template there, and we're working on tweaking that for the next release. Inside WooCommerce, we have pages. I hope you realize by this point how much is going into each one, and we do this every month. So I'm getting tired just going through it. But then in WooCommerce, these are relatively quick. We have to set them up. And what we're doing for this next release is, rather than just saying, okay, here's a big package, a Blaze package of every single bit of content, we are going to have that, but we're also going to give options of taking that just smaller elements. So there would be that flash element, which is just the promotion content, just the lead magnet. There'll be a beacon version, which is just for self-study. So if you really only want to do a text-based self-study, self-paced course, either as an ebook or uploading it, to an online course platform or membership site just as text, we'll give that option. That'll be the beacon level. And then the Blaze will be everything, the flash, the beacon, and then all the multimedia options and teaching support and stuff like that. Custom thank you pages we do that gives any type of, what's on our custom thank you pages? A little more information. We'll put the suggested curriculum and elements there and discounts for those. So that also is a way for me, when I do a Facebook ad, to track who's already purchased it and have a pixel there. So obviously in my email system, an ActiveCampaign, I know who's purchased something or not, so that I'm not constantly sending promotion emails to somebody who's already bought a product. That's the beauty of something like ActiveCampaign. But also on the thank you pages, I don't want to send ads to someone who's already bought it. So that's important. There's all the review of and sales copy and pretty link redirects, and I've been doing a sneak peek video so that you can see inside the folder before you buy something exactly what you're getting. And I've now started doing these Facebook Lives as well. So I will give the opportunity, after I've released something, I'll do a Facebook Live now that not just shares some sort of information or tip or trick or whatnot, but also you'll have a chance to ask questions if that's something you need to do, or you have questions. And of course, I am always looking at my email, and my support desk is actually the best way to get questions answered. And then we come to the actual launch. Finally, we have a date, we launch, we do the announcement, all the emails are already scheduled to go. We have to add the product to the product catalog page, add it to a curriculum spreadsheet. So these are all internal things that we make sure we're doing. And the rest of the stuff, we're scheduling it all out and just keeping an eye on things, looking out for emails and questions and making sure everything's working, the prices are right. And then after the launch, again, we check the pricing, we check the redirects are working, and we move stuff we keep everything in a Dropbox, a Dropbox folder that we work together on that's products in progress, and we'll move it out into our regular stuff. So that's everything. You've just seen inside our project management system and all the different things that go and get involved in creating our courses. There are other things I'm sure that I've forgotten. Whenever we have something that we forget, we try and go back to this template and add it in so that the next time we don't forget it. And we have templates, and we have our Dropbox folders all organized with those templates and everything set up so that we know what is going on and nothing gets lost. Inevitably, there's something that gets lost or forgotten or mistaken. It just happens, but we have refined this over time, and we keep it up to date as well.